Number the Stars is a historical fiction piece of writing that was originally written by Lois Lowry, an American author. It was published in 1989, and kids, that was 32 years ago. It was awarded the Newbery Medal in 1990 as the previous year's most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. This new version, which I am calling Renumber the Stars, is written by me, General James. Let's start with the setting. Does anyone know what a setting is? Okay, well, a setting is where and when a book or movie takes place. In this story, the setting is in Denmark during World War II. Denmark is a country in Northern Europe in between Germany and Sweden. Something to notice is just how crazy close Sweden and Denmark are to each other. At the closest points, they are only 2.5 miles apart. The Nazi leader, Adolf Hitler, was a bad, bad man. He sent millions of people to a place called a concentration camp, which was a place you did not want to be. He also ruthlessly attacked other countries around his own country of Germany. He did this for power and Lebensraum, or living space. He basically wanted more. More power and more Lebensraum. Think of it this way. If you got what you wanted, but you still wanted and craved more, in Hitler's case, he wanted land. Lebensraum is a territory that a state or nation believes is needed for its natural development. Officially, the Nazis claimed that they did not want to take over Denmark. They were simply protecting it from a British invasion. However, we know better. Hitler wanted it all. Now, on to the story. There are two 10-year-old girls, Anne-Marie and Ellen, who are the best of friends. There is also an annoying younger sibling. Doesn't every family have one of those? Anyway, Anne-Marie has a 5-year-old sister named Kirsty. Although she is annoying, the girls still love her very much. The parents were also the best of friends despite having different beliefs. Anne-Marie's parents were Christians and Ellen's parents were Jewish. Sadly, the Nazis hated Jews for no good reason. The girls had to live about 5 years of their life in a strict and unforgiving German occupation. An occupation is like if you and your sibling each have your own room, and your sibling takes a part of your room. That would seem unfair, wouldn't it? Well, that would be a sort of occupation. For years, there was no coffee, sugar, butter, tea, or coal, which was very hard to find. The girls' parents did their very best to let the girls lead a quote-unquote normal life. In Denmark, there used to be a king who ruled the land, but now he was no more than a well-loved citizen. His name was King Christian X, and he used to live in a real palace called Amalienburg. Pretty much anyone would proudly die for him. Anne-Marie used to have an 18-year-old sister, but sadly she died a few years ago. Anne-Marie was told she had been run over by a car just 2 weeks before her wedding to Peter Nielsen, who was a very brave and kind man. Mrs. Rosen and Anne-Marie's mom, Miss Johansson, would get together and secretly discuss the current world situation. They both disliked the Nazi occupation. They were fortunate enough to obtain a copy of the illegal newspaper Die Danske. They would read about things that Adolf Hitler did not want them to know. They quickly learned that Sweden was a neutral country, and luckily for the Swedish people, they were never occupied and actually became a well-known safe haven for European Jews running away from Germany. The families had potatoes almost every night for dinner. Because remember, there was no sugar, butter, and there's extremely little coal. That must have gotten boring. Could you imagine eating the same thing for dinner for years and years at a time? There was also no leather, meaning that the Danish people had to experiment with different things. Even for their shoes, they found that fish scales worked well as replacements. Ew, yuck, gross. I know, but that's all they had. Kirsty needed new shoes, so Mrs. Johansson bought her a pair of scaly shoes. She hated them so very much that she refused to wear them, not only because they were made out of fish skin, but because she hated the color green. Ellen offered to paint the shoes black for her. Immediately, Kirsty said yes. One fateful night, however, the mean Germans pounded on the Johanssons' door, rounding up all of the Jews. Luckily, Ellen was spending the night there because her parents knew bad things were happening to Jewish families, so they smartly, quote-unquote, disappeared. After that disturbing night, they all decided to visit Anne Marie's uncle. Uncle Henrik lived by the sea, very close to Sweden. A few notable things happened at Uncle Henrik's. First, Kirsty had found and befriended a sweet stray kitten and named it Thor, after the god of thunder. Next, Anne-Marie's mom asked if the weather was good for fishing. But the weird thing was, Denmark's fishermen fished no matter what the weather was. Third, they all got a rare and special treat. Henrik was able to save a little bit of butter to add to the oatmeal. Yummy. And lastly, a family member by the name of Great Aunt Birta, who Aunt Marie had never heard of, had died. As per Danish custom, quote-unquote mourners came to visit the coffin and pay their respects, which is placed in the middle of the family room. Without an invitation, some German officers pushed their way inside. They wanted to see what was happening and why so many people were gathering. They also wanted to make sure the mourners weren't breaking any Nazi laws. Once the officers were satisfied and believed that nothing funny was taking place, they left. Now back to the mourners. Oddly enough, one of them turned out to be Peter, Lisa's fiancé, and even more crazy. Ellen's parents showed up. It is much easier to be brave if you don't know everything, said Uncle Henrik, telling Anne-Marie a little bit about what they were actually doing. The coffin didn't actually have anyone in it. Instead, it contained blankets and certainly not Great Aunt Birta. Turns out the clothes and blankets would be needed for all of the quote-unquote mourners who would be crossing the Sound to find their freedom in Sweden, including the Rosens. In addition to the warm clothing, Mr. Rosen was given an extremely important letter that he would need to ensure their safe passage. Late at night, Anne-Marie's mother risked her life to escort the Rosen family to Uncle Henrik, where he would get them safely to Sweden. Mama was very brave, but when she didn't return when she should have, Anne-Marie grew sick with worry. Turns out that Mama had fallen and broken her ankle and had a most difficult time hobbling back to the cabin. Unfortunately, while leaving the house, the extremely important letter that Mr. Rosen was supposed to deliver to Henrik had fallen out of his pocket. Oh no! So Anne-Marie made a mad dash to deliver the letter to Uncle Henrik that Mr. Rosen had lost. While she was running, she was stopped by 4 angry German Nazi soldiers and ferocious attack dogs. So scary. Anne-Marie placed the very important letter under some food in the basket that her mom helped her prepare as her disguise and alibi. If she were stopped by anyone, she would say that she was only delivering lunch to her forgetful uncle. The German soldiers took all the food out and fed it to the dogs. Anne-Marie was so afraid. They saw the letter, ripped it open, laughed about it being a pathetic napkin, and threw it on the ground. After the soldiers left her, she bravely ran as quickly as she could and managed to arrive at the docks just in time to give the letter to Uncle Henrik. Phew! She really did her part for her best friend. Fast forward 2 years after the Rosens were smuggled into Sweden. World War II had finally ended. Although the Rosens were safe, sadly Peter was killed. The Nazis executed Peter for being a resistance fighter. Anne-Marie also learned some truths. First, she learned the truth about her sister's death. Her older sister, Lisa, was killed for being a resistance fighter, fighting for the safety of the Jews in Denmark. And then she finally found out what the super secret important letter contained. It contained a napkin with a special chemical that harmed the ferocious Nazi attack dogs' sense of smell. Upon smelling the napkin, the dogs were unable to smell the smuggled humans that were nearby. The end. I would like to give a shout out to Captain Chaos for his help with the illustrations. Bye.